JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud in 2017, and PayPal co-founder and former CEO Bill Harris called Bitcoin a scam in 2018. And a few weeks ago, Goldman Sachs stated in a leaked investor call that Bitcoin is not a real asset. Then, as it turns out, JP Morgan was in secret meetings with Coinbase to build their own blockchain solution and announced in May of this year that they're extending banking services to Coinbase and Gemini. Welcome to DeFi Now, where we give you the knowledge and tools to thrive in the next generation of finance. I'm Josh Cross, and this is my DeFi dog, Steve Irwin. If you're new here, be sure to click those subscribe and bell buttons or smash them if that's your style. After we go through how the banks have been lying to us all, I'll add some fun to the end and I'll tell you what you can do, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So I'm going to do my best to contain my aggravation in this video, as these institutions are causing actual harm to people who really need Bitcoin by discouraging them from buying any. Meanwhile, they're building their own infrastructure to get a piece of the pie. Of course, this is not at all surprising coming from institutions who have caused so much damage to our economy, and they consistently take from the poorest among us through hidden fees, high interest rates, and in the case of PayPal, poor exchange rates. Do you want down, buddy? Yeah, let me let you down. How about I let you down and get you a treat? Does that sound good? Got a bunch of hair on me? Typical dog. Now, as many of you know, I lived in China from early 2013 to summer of 2019. During this time, I sent money back home to my savings account, as I naturally didn't want my money to be in the hands of the Chinese government. I used a couple different remittance services, but mainly I used PayPal. And anyone who's used a remittance service such as Western Union, MoneyGram, or PayPal knows how messed up the remittance industry is. Remittances are most commonly used when a citizen of a very poor nation moves to a wealthier nation to work. Then they regularly send money back home to support their families. These are among the poorest people of the world, and these services regularly take between 6 and 15% of the money in order to transfer it. Usually this is done through a percentage fee and then a terrible exchange rate, which hides the rest of the fee. When I sent money back through PayPal, I usually lost about 10%. Now think about that. That means for every 10 months of work, one of those entire months of pay goes to PayPal for moving around some data on the computer. Of course, PayPal has to pay fees to the banks that are transmitting this money, but the fact is, this system is robbing desperate people who have no other way to send their money back to their families. Or at least there was no other way before crypto. So when any of these institutions call Bitcoin a fraud or a scam, it's not only factually inaccurate, it's immensely hypocritical. Now, how does this all tie into crypto? I'm so glad you asked. Will you stop licking my toes? It's really distracting. I'm sure you've heard of Cash App. It's a competitor to Venmo, which is owned by PayPal, and Cash App started allowing its users to buy and sell Bitcoin in 2017. Initially, they didn't charge any fees for this, but in late 2019, that changed. They started charging fees from 1 to 4%, and in the fourth quarter of 2019, they recorded $178 million in revenue from Bitcoin purchases. This revenue hasn't gone unnoticed by PayPal, so it shouldn't be a surprise that PayPal and or Venmo will start offering Bitcoin purchases in the coming months. This is a complete 180 from PayPal's co-founder and previous CEO's stance on Bitcoin. If you've read my free blockchain guide, you already know part of what I mentioned regarding JP Morgan. If you haven't read my free blockchain guide, then what are you waiting for? It's literally free. It's going to take like an hour to read. Just go download it already. In this guide, I went over the first part of JP Morgan's flip-flopping journey, but after I wrote it, we've gotten some more juicy information. So for those who haven't read it, here's a 10-second recap. In September of 2017, Jamie Dimon slammed Bitcoin as a fraud. A few months later, Jamie Dimon publicly stated that he regrets calling Bitcoin a fraud. And in February 2019, JP Morgan announced that they would be the very first big US bank with their own centralized cryptocurrency. Now, it's not a cryptocurrency if it's centralized, but as I said earlier, JP Morgan opened its first banking account for 2 US-based crypto exchanges. This was Coinbase and Gemini. And according to Jeff Roberts, a journalist from Fortune, JP Morgan held secret meetings with Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong as early as 2018. Now, There is a lot of speculation about these meetings, and it is important to know that we don't know what was actually discussed there. I'm going to quickly debunk what Goldman Sachs said about Bitcoin, and although they haven't released any kind of statement of how they will use blockchain yet, they're definitely going to jump on the bandwagon. It's only a matter of time until they follow suit, just like all the others. In the leaked slide, they listed 5 reasons Bitcoin is not an asset class. They said that they don't generate cash flow or earnings, such as bonds or stocks, although some bonds do negative cash flow, and not all stocks even provide dividends. They said they don't provide diversification benefits, they've got high volatility, they're not a hedge against inflation. They then state that they believe that a security whose appreciation is primarily dependent on whether someone else is willing to pay a higher price for it is not a suitable investment for their clients. Why do people buy gold or stocks or real estate? It's because they believe someone will pay a higher price for them in the future. That's what investments are for. Cryptocurrencies are most definitely a macro asset class. Bitcoin doesn't produce cash flow like bonds or some stocks, but like I said, no, not all stocks provide dividends. Most people buy them expecting them to go up in price, and they can sell them to somebody else for a higher price. Bitcoin's value comes from its ability to be transmitted via any communication network while still being scarce. It is the scarcest asset in the world because if you compare it to gold, if the interest in gold doubled, there would be more incentives to fund a gold mining company, so we could double the amount of gold that we mine every year, and this would double the inflation rate of gold. But if the interest in Bitcoin mining doubles, we'll mine twice as many Bitcoins for about a week before the network automatically adjusts for it, makes it twice as difficult to mine, so we get back to that steady inflation rate. And the inflation rate for Bitcoin gets cut in half every 4 years on top of that. Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation and has far outperformed inflation, as I said in my video on the halving, which if you haven't watched, you should check that out. Bitcoin reached its all-time high price in 2010 of 39 cents. Now it's around $9,000. That's 23,000 times higher in a decade. So yes, Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. Then on the next slide, they go over all the illicit activity that Bitcoin has been used for to push the same old narrative that cryptocurrencies are just for criminals and that whole thing that I've covered on my channel already. This is coming from a company who has paid $7.7 billion in fines for money laundering since the financial crash of 2008. All in all, this report is either due to complete incompetence when it comes to understanding markets, or, and in my opinion more likely, it's just another blatant attempt to mislead investors. When the Goldman Sachs slides were leaked, one of the top educators in this industry, Andreas Antonopoulos, had some really great parallels that he shared on Twitter to when cars started replacing horses. And you've got to admit, he makes some pretty good points, and maybe we should go back to horses. He said, cars are smelly and they go too fast. They can be used to rob banks and get away. Car manufacturers should employ veterinarians like we do. It's a public health issue. The price of gas is much higher than the price of hay. More pedestrians are killed by cars than horses. Cars are not cute, they are too loud. We like the invention behind cars, pneumatic tires, so we'll just use pneumatic tires in our horse carriages. Cars don't work well on horse trails. Cars sometimes blow up, horses never do. No one knows how cars work, so it's probably witchcraft. You can't whistle at a car and have it come to you. Also, what are we going to do with all of our horses? Don't worry, the government will ban cars. This goes to show how dying industries will do whatever they can to maintain their place, even when they can no longer compete. It's kind of funny. It used to be that only rich people owned cars and everybody owned horses, and now only rich people own horses and everybody owns cars. Oh, how the stables have turned. The point of this video is to show that despite all the negative press that Bitcoin has gotten over the years, the network doesn't care. It has and it will continue on putting another block in the blockchain every 10 minutes. It's Bitcoin's heartbeat. And those who refuse to adapt to the new paradigm will get left behind, just like those who couldn't adapt to the internet. And the same goes for everyone else. If you watch the videos on my channel, you are among the very few who are really taking a look at this. And we're still so early, so the opportunities are still here. But if you wait until every banking dinosaur and average Joe understands the value of blockchain, it will be too late and there won't be opportunities. The next bull market cycle has already started for many projects, especially in DeFi. And it's only a matter of time until Bitcoin and the other large coins also start rising in price. The train is about to leave the station and then start picking up speed, but you can still jump on, but you've got to be educated to survive here. Now, you've made it to the end of this video, so you're on the right track, but you also need to make sure that you've subscribed, watched the other videos on my channel, and reached out with questions either in the comments below or by emailing me at contact@defi-now.com. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions because we're all in this together. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in Wednesday's video when I go over Ethereum 2.0 and how massively undervalued the Ethereum is, and how you can make passive income with it. Until then, take care.